Hello everyone and good afternoon. My name's Don Arleth and you're watching Midday Report here on TVP World. The coalition of the willing countries supporting Ukraine have begun work on a framework for security guarantees for Kyiv, according to Finland's Foreign Minister Elina Valtonen. The comments follow a virtual meeting of the 30-strong group that was held at midday Central European time on Tuesday. Poland's Prime Minister Donald Tusk said all the meeting participants confirmed the need for continued support for Ukraine. It came a day after the meeting in Washington between U.S. President Trump, President Zelensky, and key European leaders. The countries have previously pledged a readiness to participate in peacekeeping force deployed on Ukrainian territory after any ceasefire has been agreed. And now we go live to Sonia Biszczan for an update there, joining us live from Warsaw. Good afternoon, Sonia. So what else do we know about this coalition of the willing and these security guarantees so far?
Good afternoon, Don. Well, we're currently awaiting the 3 p.m. press conference at the Polish Prime Minister's office, and perhaps this is an event where we can expect to get more information about the meetings that took place this afternoon. But I can share with you what we do know so far, and that is that both meetings with the participation of the Polish Prime Minister Donald Tusk, the 12 p.m. online meeting with the coalition of the willing, as well as the 1 p.m. meeting with the European Council, focused on the Monday meeting in Washington between the U.S. President Donald Trump and the Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky, as well as with a number of the European leaders, which focused on the path towards peace for Ukraine. What we also know is that the meeting of the Coalition of the Willing was chaired by the French President Emmanuel Macron and the British Prime Minister Keir Starmer. And ahead of the meeting of the Coalition of the Willing, Macron's office shared that the leaders would focus on discussing security guarantees. Following the meeting of the Coalition of the Willing and ahead of the European Council meeting, Donald Tusk shared his impressions.
The leaders of Canada, Japan, Turkey, New Zealand and EU member states have been realistic in their appraisal of the aftermath of the Alaska meeting. We're all in agreement about the need to further support Ukraine as it defends itself against Russia. It's a good introduction to the European Council session that's about to begin.
Although the meeting on Monday in Washington included a number of European leaders, a Polish presence in the meeting was missing, and this continues to be a key question, something that we're still awaiting an answer for as to why this was the case. Perhaps the 3 p.m. press conference could shed some light on that. At the same time as the Coalition of the Willing meeting at 12 p.m. on Tuesday, the meeting of the Polish cabinet took place, and in the absence of Donald Tusk, this meeting was chaired by the Polish defense minister and the Deputy Prime Minister Władysław Kosiniak-Kamysz, who said that he hopes that the European leaders, including Donald Tusk, through these meetings, that they will come closer to a lasting peace for Ukraine. Back to you.
All right, Sonia Biszczan reporting there from the Chancellery of the Prime Minister. Thank you for that. Now, there were no discussions or negotiations regarding the composition of the delegation to Washington. That's how Polish Foreign Ministry spokesperson Paweł Wroński explained why no one from Poland joined the talks where the future of Ukraine was on the table. Wroński said that President Zelensky had already agreed the lineup directly with Donald Trump, leaving Warsaw out of the process before the video conference even began.
To już wyjaśnialiśmy.
We have already explained this multiple times. During the video conference of the Coalition of the Willing, which Foreign Minister Radosław Sikorski attended, there were no discussions or negotiations regarding the composition of the delegation. At the beginning of the meeting, when President Volodymyr Zelensky spoke, he said, according to accounts related to me, that he is grateful to officials heading to the meeting, adding that this was the lineup agreed during his conversation with Donald Trump. And that is all. There were no names proposed, no decision-making on who would travel and who would not. This was how the matter was addressed during the video conference of the Coalition of the Willing.
Switzerland will grant Russian leader Vladimir Putin immunity if he attends a peace conference in the country, Swiss Foreign Minister Ignazio Cassis confirmed on Tuesday in Bern. The Swiss Foreign Ministry said the government had established rules last year for granting immunity to individuals like Vladimir Putin subject to international arrest warrants. Immunity applies only if the person is taking part in a peace conference, not for private reasons. The International Criminal Court issued a warrant for Putin in March of 2023, accusing him of unlawfully deporting Ukrainian children from occupied territories. The announcement comes as U.S. President Donald Trump said he is arranging a meeting between President Zelensky and Putin to discuss ending the war. A three-way meeting involving Trump is expected to follow. In a television interview, French President Emmanuel Macron suggested that Geneva would be a suitable venue, citing Switzerland's neutral status. Finland's President Alexander Stubb says that details of the security guarantees for Ukraine could be worked out within the next week or so. Stubb also said, was also one of the European leaders who had accompanied Volodymyr Zelensky to talks with Donald Trump about the war in Ukraine. The Finnish leader also told reporters on Tuesday that Russian President Vladimir Putin is to be rarely trusted, and that his attendance at proposed meetings would be a test of his commitment to peace.
Mutta nyt täytyy muistaa, että
we must remember that Vladimir Putin is rarely to be trusted, so it remains to be seen whether he has the courage to come to this type of meeting. Does he have the courage to come to a trilateral meeting, or is he once again playing for time? Of course, if he does play for time, then together we will seek new solutions. I also want to note that we agreed regarding the security guarantees that even within a fairly short time frame, we will return to this matter concretely, once officials and military experts have found solutions.
Seuraava vaihe on bilateraalitapaaminen.
The next step is a bilateral meeting. I wouldn't rush it, but I would hope it could take place within the next couple of weeks. And if that is achieved, then I would hope the trilateral meeting could follow soon after. But once again, the point that brings a bit of skepticism here is Putin's commitment to this process.
Despite ongoing peace efforts, Russia overnight launched 270 drones into Ukraine, according to Ukraine's Foreign Minister Andrii Sybiha. The Russian strikes targeted several regions of the country, including Kharkiv, Poltava and Donetsk.
One civilian was killed after Russian missiles struck Slovyansk in the Donetsk region.
This was a ceramics workshop. There were no military personnel or any military equipment here. This is a civilian area. We repair cars here. There are no military forces, yet they keep targeting us.
Beyond the casualties and damaged infrastructure, the attacks have taken a toll on the local ecosystem.
I was tending to my beehives. Today I went to check on my bees. They are all still. None of them are flying because they've gone deaf.
At least 7 people were wounded in the Kharkiv region, and multiple fires were sparked by the attacks. In Poltava, some 1,500 people were left without power, as Russia continues its relentless strikes despite ongoing efforts to reach a peace agreement.
Amid the ongoing discussions over a possible ceasefire in Russia's war against Ukraine, members of the Belarusian democratic opposition are speculating on the future that awaits their country if Moscow pauses its attacks. Among them is Pavel Latushko, deputy head of the Belarusian transnational cabinet, who recently joined Belsat for an interview.
Our history has proven time and again that Belarus has always been at the crossroads of wars and geopolitical fractures. And in our current situation, we once again find ourselves on this geopolitical fault line. But it's important to understand which side we as Belarus will be on. If Belarus sides with the West, as is the strategic goal we set for ourselves, then the independence and sovereignty of Belarus will be preserved. If we end up in the East, then this sovereignty and independence will be under constant and permanent threat, despite all the promises of security guarantees for Ukraine by Russia, the Kremlin and Putin. Not a word is said, by the way, about Belarus. But this is not a question for another day. It is a question for today. And I think it's important that both in Washington and tomorrow, our partners talk about this and take the necessary steps to guarantee the right of Belarusians to decide the future of their own state.
The president of Republika Srpska, Milorad Dodik, has officially lost his position after a court in Bosnia and Herzegovina rejected his appeal against a decision of a previous court to terminate his powers. According to the election law of Bosnia and Herzegovina, the Central Election Commission is now obliged to call early elections for the president of Republika Srpska, which must be held within 90 days. In response to the court's decision, Milorad Dodik said that he would not accept what he called, quote, disrespect for the Constitution and the people's will. The Electoral Commission revoked Dodik's mandate after he was given 1-year prison sentence and a 6-year ban on holding public office for refusing to comply with the Dayton Agreement. Milorad Dodik rejected the court and the Electoral Commission's rulings, vowing that Republika Srpska will resist what he called external interventions. Dodik also called on the EU's peacekeeping mission in Bosnia to position itself on Republika Srpska's borders if necessary. Thousands of anti-government demonstrators marched again in Serbia overnight, with riot police clashing with protesters in Belgrade. The protests in the country's capital was peaceful until a group of young people, believed to be football hooligans, split from the crowd and hurled a rock at the ruling party's offices. The protest started at the monument to Vuk Karadžić and moved towards downtown Belgrade. Marching down one of the city's streets, a group split up from the protesters and stepped outside the ruling Serbian Progressive Party's headquarters. They then threw flares at the offices, breaking windows on the premises. After the attack, 3 riot police vehicles arrived, forming a cordon to protect the building. The group of unruly demonstrators then set fire to garbage cans and all while targeting police officers with stones and flares. Serbian President Aleksandar Vučić arrived on the scene 15 minutes following the attack, reiterating that his government will resist and fight the demonstrators. Poland's fire service has welcomed a move to significantly increase the fines for arson, bringing them up from €1,100 to a maximum of €7,000. A spokesperson for the State Fire Service said so far this year, Poland has experienced nearly 4,300 forest fires, most of which were started deliberately. The Council of Ministers will on Tuesday consider a draft legal amendment to raise fines for arson. The State Fire Service spokesperson said new regulations could provide real support for the police when the culprits are brought before them in courts. So far this year, 2 people have died in forest fires and 4 others were injured. Polish tennis star Iga Świątek claimed her first Cincinnati Open title by beating Jasmine Poloni 7-5, 6-4. The 6-time Grand Slam winner did not drop a set on her way to victory, sending a powerful message ahead of the U.S. Open. Świątek converted all 6 of her break points to secure her 11th WTA 1,000 crown and first since last year's Italian Open. The win will also ensure that the Wimbledon champion will climb back to the world number 2, securing the 2nd seed for the final major of the year at Flushing Meadows, where singles action begins on Sunday. And that concludes this midday report. Thank you all for joining us and hope to see you next time. Goodbye.